All right, guys, the Chancellor is back. I finally found a way to record the videos without ruining my device, and I got a new tablet, as you can tell. Woohoo! It's much more interesting and less laggy and less ugly, if you know what I mean. So, last horrible video, I left with, after we talked about resources, different type of buildings, and different type of bases. Now, in this video, I'll be talking about troops and how they affect commanders and how commanders affect the troops. So, let's just get right into it so I don't waste you guys' time, and it's short and sweet. So, starting with troops, we have three different type of troops in this game. We have long-range troops, short-range troops, and mid-range troops. And now, there are subcategories of those troops that are different and all alike and all of that. So, in your long-range troops, you have two types basically underneath them. Underneath long range, you have your aircrafts and your vehicles. So you have long-range vehicles and long-range aircrafts. And your long-range aircrafts are your helicopters and your Hellstorms. And then your long-range vehicles are your artillery and your railgun tanks. Now, and then you have your short-range units. And underneath your short range, you have, usually you have mechs. Most of them are mechs. But short range and mid range all use mechs and vehicles and aircrafts also. So like on long range, you only have aircrafts and vehicles. And in short range, you have mechs. You only have mechs, fast units. So let's say your short range units are usually your fast units that go in the front first and usually also die first. So your short range units would be your Jeeps, your Hammerheads, and your Centurions, and your Hellfires. Those are your short range units, and they're mechs. They usually die fast. And then you have your mid range units, which have a combination of all three. They have vehicles, they have aircrafts, and they have mechs. So mid-range units have vehicles, aircrafts, and mechs. And what I mean by this is your mid-range units are usually like right in the middle between your short range and your long range. Obviously it says mid. So your mid-range units are your tanks, your mid-range vehicles. So you have mid-range vehicles are your tanks, your arachnids, and your rocket trucks. Those are your mid-range vehicles. And then you have your mid-range aircrafts. Your mid-range aircrafts are just your Hawks. They are mid-range aircrafts. And then you have your mid-range mechs, which are just your Titans mostly. I mean, Centurions are actually, arachnids are mid-range mechs. My bad, they're not vehicles. I'm sorry about that. Tanks are vehicles. Arachnids are no longer vehicles. So yeah, what I mean by no longer is back in the day when War of Nations came out and like all the years have passed, arachnids and Centurions were once not what they are now. For example, Centurions were aircrafts at a certain point. They were mid-range aircrafts, but then Greed changed them into fast units. And I don't know, it just, the name probably met because the picture used to look different also. And your arachnids used to look a lot more like tanks, used to look a lot more like vehicles, but now they're also mechs. And so they are your mid-range mechs. Now, your troops, when you look at your commanders, there's certain boosted troop traits. They're called traits, and you can read on the commander information what traits are and all of that. And many things people don't really notice is like how the commanders are set up. People, when they look at commanders, they're limited by the leadership. Now, just so people can know, leadership only limits the number that can be boosted by the damage, health, and leadership stats. Only those. Like on Beetle, it says 8,482 damage. That means 5,949 of your troops have that damage. Now, the percent traits, like the 30% in vehicle health, are unlimited. So they are not bounded by the leadership. That's something many people don't get and many people don't understand. And so when they ask them, oh, don't overpass your leadership, it's true, never do that, because if the certain amount of troops that the commander holds are overpassed, the rest are commanderless. They're not commanded in a war. So that's why you never want to pass your leadership. But just so you know, your traits are not bounded by leadership. And if you think, oh, it's just speaking a bunch of baloney, read carefully on your commanders. Why? Okay, read carefully on the commander information. When it says traits, traits affect different unit types and are not bound by your leadership. So many people don't really read that and they just think, oh, your leadership should never be passed. Yes, but the traits are never bounded by leadership. Okay, so now talking about the effect of commanders on troops. Everywhere I go in every line chat I'm in, people always talk about long range and short range commanders. There is no such a thing as a long range commander or short range commander, because most of the commanders have traits that use like mech aircraft vehicle or mech aircraft or vehicle aircraft, all these combinations. And most of these troop types, long range and short range, have those types of troops in them. So like long range units have aircrafts and vehicles. So if a commander has aircraft and vehicles, it can be used as a long range commander, but it can also be used as a short range commander because there is short range and mid range vehicles and aircrafts. So what I mean by this is, let me try to set up an attack kind of thing. So let's say I'm attacking from home base and I should have like a fur forge in there, right? I'm gonna change my farming wave, okay? So I will use fur forge because she seems like the most balanced out of all these so far, okay? So I'm using fur forge, send everything to 0, okay? So she is boosted on vehicles and mechs, right? Which means she can still fight with as an aircraft commander. You can send aircrafts with her, but the aircrafts are not boosted. So you can use her for aircraft, but they are not boosted with her stats. So if I was to put in 50 helis, which I usually do on my short range, mid range attacks, you can see that her damage and her health match her stats as a commander. As you can see, 3,607, which is usually rounded to 361 on your attack, on like the stats in here, 361, it's rounded from 3607, and your health, which is 359, is rounded from 358. So it's still using those stats, those attack, damage, health, and leadership from there. And as you can see, the max it can use is 1,505 units. But as you can see, it uses those attacks. Now, if I was to add, okay, my game is lagging a little bit. If I was to add vehicles, which it boosts, and since she's high on vehicles, I want to make sure like I match my combos to the commander as much as possible. It doesn't mean because they say, oh, she's a mech, she uses a lot, she boosts mech and she boosts a vehicle, that you can only send vehicles and mechs with her. No. What it means is you can send anything you want with her, but if you have more vehicles and more mechs in her makeup, in her wave, it boosts those attacks and you have a much more higher chance of winning the attack or gaining more battle points or raiding more resources or destroying more, having more attack points. So now if I add 150 rocket trucks, which are mid-range vehicles, so 250, because she's heavy on vehicles, I'm gonna go heavy on vehicles. It boosts from 361 to 392. That's just from adding vehicles. And now I can add a lot more. I can add more aircraft, like 10 Hailstorms, which I usually do. It won't change much because she doesn't boost the aircrafts, but she boosts like 8% on the vehicles. It boosts 8% of their damage because, let's say, and I think an artillery makes a certain amount of damage, that damage is boosted 8%. And the same thing is done for like all the the vehicles. So let's say I add like 250 artillery, it boosts it to 394. So it adds the damage that both the artillery and the rocket trucks can make together, and then adds its 8% to it. So that's where you get that like increase in the numbers. And this is like some high math, and like people don't really want to do the math, they just want to put the wave in. And this is usually what happens. People just copy other people's waves and like combos and start thinking they're doing great, they're these beast players. They don't really take the time to like do all this, and I know it's boring sometimes and all of that. So if I add in the mechs, which is also boosted the mechs, it also boosts the mech damage, I'll go with 150 hammerheads because they're mechs and short range mechs, and it boosted up by another just 1% even, but still. Now, oh, what did I do? Okay, 50, 10, 250, and then 250, take out transports. Okay, so add 150 hammerheads. Okay, now, oh, I didn't pick a commander. Okay, so where we left off right here. Okay, now I can add Titans also, which are also mechs. They're mid-range mechs, and she's highly boosted on mechs. And I want that boost, that extra damage. So I put 100 Titans, and it boosted up another 1%. What this does is it adds all the troops that get boosted. So it adds the damage the mechs make, the damage the rocket trucks make, the damage the artillery make, and the damage the Titans make. It adds them all together and then does the math for the 8% and then adds it onto that total of like the percentage it makes from like the original amount the commander can make. The original amount the commander damages is 3,607. So that's 361%, as I said earlier. And so it just adds that 8% from the total of like the artillery, the rocket trucks, the mechs, and all of that. And now that's not even like the highest it can go, because the more units you add, the higher it goes. Because right now I can only send a max of 1,100 troops. If I could send 1,200, that percentage could be a lot higher. Like, let's say I max this percentage out, so 100 Hellfires. Okay, still a 96. Okay, now let's see, 100 railgun tanks. I don't usually send 100 railgun tanks, but just for the fun of it. Okay, it's 396. Now let me max out the wave. Let's say I add more mechs, because they won't make a difference whether it's artillery, vehicles, or mechs. And so now, right now it shows the max as 397. And that's not even the max it can go, because right now I only have 1,100 troops. And she can hold 1,504 and 5. And so, I mean, not only is that 361% added, but I can add more troops and they will get boosted. So if I was to add 100 more troops and I added like more vehicles and more mechs, that percentage will go up to probably about 400 or something, or 4,000 something. So like the best example I can probably do right now is try to see a leveling base. No. 20B base. Okay, this is our training base. Let me try to show just like, okay, Foxtrot. Let me try to show, I have like a bunch of artillery in here. Okay, now, okay, my commander, the Beetle, is health on vehicles a lot. So if I pick her, I pick him, and then I take out like all the troops, as you can see. Right now I put aircraft and, okay, no aircraft. Wait, no, my bad. Okay, she's what? Okay, health versus vehicles, and vehicle health and vehicle damage. All right, so I put in, okay, the Jeeps do add, because Jeeps are are mechs, and they really do good damage against vehicles, and that's why it got boosted like that, because that's the increased damage it does on vehicles. But overall, this is the average what it has, like 1,000, 10,050. That's the 1,005 you see there, and then your damage is 8,482. You get the 849. So it takes the stats of the commander of the troops that can boost. Now, if I was to add the rocket trucks, look how much that goes up. It boosts the damage, as you can see, like 1200, right? If I was to put it at 100, it would probably like 1093. And like you can see how much it increased, like it boosts the damage of the rocket trucks and its health by like a lot. And so the more troops I can add, the better. If I like take out that and add more arts, well, I don't have enough arts to make a difference, but that really helps. And if I increase this, it increases the damage. See that? If I increase that, take out that, and increase that, it takes the damage, it adds damage on its own without the vehicles. So if I add the vehicles, it increases a lot more. So it boosts the troops that's needed. And so many people really don't get that. They just copy and talk about long range and short range commanders. There's really like no such a thing, because all the commanders can be used for both. There's no certain type of commanders that can be used for one. For example, when Deep Dive is like one of the best commanders that ever crossed through this game. And people usually just call him, oh, Deep Dive is an awesome long-range commander. And I would just sit there and think, why would they call him a long-range commander when obviously he could have been used for both and been pretty beast on both? I was never able to get a pure of him, and it kind of pissed me off. But Deep Dive has traits on vehicle, damage versus vehicles, and vehicle health. So that means you could have used artillery, rocket trucks, and then you could have used mechs on him, because the damage versus vehicles, the troops that have the most damage on vehicles are mechs, and mechs are great at killing vehicles. And then you also have it boosted by his stats, and that's even a higher boost. So he was never really just a long range commander or just a short range commander. It could have been used for either or. And so that being said, that's all I pretty much have for y'all today. Troops, what kind of troops and what commanders can do and all of that. I mean, there's a lot more detail into commanders, like like strategies on how to like boost out your commander attacks and all of that, but that's like the best thing there is. I mean, you have your upgrades, commander upgrades. Mine are shit right now. I mean, I have all the normals up max, but my experimentals are shit. They just like fuck up every time. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to curse, but still, grid is such a mess. So that being said, that's it for commanders very much. And if you have any other questions, if I wasn't clear enough, or I started or like messed up on some things, don't be afraid to leave a comment. You can contact me easily through like, social media and all of that, or you can download the Line app. If you don't know what it is, just Google it or go into your Play Store, download the Line app, and you can get on there. You can add me. I'll write my user ID on there, so you can add me online, and I can add you to the War of Nations community, where there's like a whole bunch of players, experienced guys, good players, coiners, every single type of player you're probably gonna meet that's on there, and they would like help you out, give you tips and all of that. And let me write it out for you guys. My ID online. Line, that's exactly how it's spelled, Line app. My ID is Chancellor _ Senpai. And if you need any help, you can add me. And if you can't find me, you can just leave yours in a comment, or like get in the game, go to World 8 and PM me your ID if you don't want anybody else to know it. And I'll just add you to the Line chat if I'm allowed to, because I'm not the moderator on there. So that was created by, some other guys, mainly Hazard, that's his game name. And it's a really good place. Meet quite a few good people. And it's a really pretty good way to just like get into the game and have some fun. You don't have to worry about like all these in-game drama. You can just talk about all kind of things. And I prefer, like, if you're still very like underage, don't get into this game as often, because it can ruin quite a few things in like all social aspects. And you know what, that's it. Taking enough of your time. And that's Chancellor for you. Hope you all enjoy it, and hope you'll have fun. Ask any questions you have. Chancellor out.